I'm calling the meeting to order. It's now 7:01 p.m. Tuesday, September 8th, 2020, and this is an open meeting of the Needham Board of Library Trustees. This meeting is being conducted remotely due to the state of emergency in the Commonwealth resulting from the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus and still in effect and consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. In this case, this meeting will allow public comment by means of chat, which we'll ask Dimitri to monitor and bring to my attention. This meeting is being recorded and all participants are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you. Please take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. The ground rules, as we've gone over before, for effective and clear conduct of our business for compliance with the governor's executive order and to ensure accurate meeting minutes, these ground rules. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will invite members by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Although to be as much as possible, I'll try to keep it informal, and we do seem to fall down on that and back to more conversational style. In any case, though, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking and try to speak clearly in a way that will help generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you, so to speak, so that we don't talk over each other. Each vote taken at this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. This is a requirement of the governor's executive order of March 12th. I'm now going to ask for a motion to automatically continue this meeting to October 13, 2020, 7 p.m. With the same Zoom ID number if there should be any technical difficulty this evening that keeps us from continuing this meeting now. Could I have that motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Rob. Second?
I second.
Okay, thank you. And all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, we'll just do this one as unanimous. If you would just raise your hands, we won't abide by that technicality. Jay, you with us?
Unmuting, and I'm saying aye.
Thank you. Okay, super. Tonight we're going to rearrange the order because the website discussion that was scheduled for 8:35 because Dave was going to be busy till then. I guess something changed and now here he is. And Roger Peterson is with us. And our working committee of trustees on the website topic, Rob and Kay and Jay are all with us to continue that discussion. First, I guess, Rob, could you just begin the discussion? I very much liked, it's been sort of a back and forth between you and Kate and Dave, and I'd just like to have that, and I'm sure Dave and Roger would like to update us as well as what's happened.
Sure. So not a ton of updates since our last meeting. As we had mentioned then, we reached out to 8 peer libraries. We reviewed 12 peer library websites based on library location in the Minuteman network and town size. We found that every single one of those town libraries had a standalone website. None of them used their own town's websites. And we reached out to 8 of them to get much more information from them, figure out why they were doing that, what their experience has been, what the cost was, what the procurement process was, and we found out quite a bit. As mentioned previously, we concluded based on those discussions that most towns avoid the townwide website due to just the inherent structure. It's not an issue specific to Civic Plus, it's more a generic issue, given that libraries have extremely dynamic content. We've since spoken with the Library Foundation of Needham on an unofficial basis, as well as with the Friends, and we continue to have discussions with both groups, although discussions are still preliminary, on potentially working to get funding, third-party funding for a new website that would help to avoid the procurement process. That's about the only update that I have. J&K, did you have anything else?
I would add, thank you, Rob, and hey, Dave and Roger. I would add that we also had some preliminary conversations with 2 outside companies, Sterling Brandworks, and I think it was Clear Peak. Is that what it was, Rob? So, you know, who walked us through the process and what would be involved and what the services that they would offer, both in terms of, you know, refreshing the website as well as managing it on a day-to-day basis with us going forward. And so we got that background, which was very useful.
Okay, Kay, anything?
Yeah, just that we, you know, the reason and the motivation for this is that there are multi-levels of structural impediments on our existing website that get in the way of being able to present the, as you said, very dynamic and always changing content that the library presents in a way that's engaging and also that is easily navigable to the public.
And we assume that you've read the letter that we prepared and reviewed the slides, right? So that you know there's not much more we have to say as introductory that we didn't lay out there.
Well, let's let Dave and Roger update us now on what's happened since and their review.
Okay, thank you. Yes. The select board was very efficient this evening and they completed their agenda in less than an hour.
Ooh.
So
it
was a pleasant surprise to be able to join you much earlier than anticipated. And thank you for taking it out of order as well. The first thing is I know the goal of everyone is to have a better customer experience online with the library website, and that's certainly that is our end goal as well. The information that was forwarded to us, we have shared that with Civic Plus to give them another chance to see if they're able to make the changes to accommodate some of the features that appear to be lacking. I think it was with Rob, I had mentioned that I'd been visiting the different sites from the list, and on just first blush of them, they look a lot like our website. There's some aesthetics that are lacking in the town's site, and again, that search of the catalogs, which I do agree is a major impediment, and something that if Civic Plus cannot address that, that certainly suggests that for the customer experience, that would not work. Another thing I did notice in going to some of the sites is some of the retail interaction with the public is on a separate website from the community itself, but some of the business side of the library is still on the main webpage of the town, so that folks that are doing research in the area on the business side would be able to easily click into it from anywhere in the website rather than looking back from a link from the town's website to the business side of the library. The reasons that we're still looking to see if Civic Plus can accommodate this is that there's certainly ease of having a single web page for overall organizational ease. Another thing is, of course, the lower cost, because if we can make the tool that we have work at no additional cost, that's in the best interest, I think, of everyone. Resources are always tight, and I can assure you that the next couple of years is going to be very tight coming into the next couple of budget seasons. Now, I did learn something else just in the opening remarks, and I just want to reconfirm what the trustees have had with third-party vendors. Are you saying that the third-party vendor would actually maintain and update the content of the website if they were to get the contract?
Dave, just to elaborate a little bit, we had some fact-finding meetings just to learn more about these. Nothing formal, of course. And we also spoke with the towns that do this. And as I mentioned, of the 12 towns that we reviewed in our area, and we wanted to focus on towns, by the way, that are all in the Minuteman network, right, because they have similar resources, similar links. As I mentioned, all 12 of them went with the outside standalone website. And how it usually works is that the web provider, they don't do the content posting. What they do is they have a content management system called, a very popular one called WordPress. It's extremely easy to use, and staff updates the contents directly. Typically, there's minimal to no training required because WordPress is so intuitive, so staff members will just directly update the content. The developer's role is to organize that content and to make sure that the page functions, to do all the back-end work. There's a lot of integration of digital resources, and that's where sometimes it really pays to have a developer that specializes in library websites, because when you start adding in Overdrive and Canopy and Hoopla and other digital resources, there's a lot of sort of specialized programming that goes into that. So what a lot of these towns do, and this kind of goes again to the dynamic nature of the content, the fact that it's always changing. We always have to be shuffling things around and adding pages, removing pages. What most of these towns do is have a support agreement with the web developer. Those typically cost between $2,000 and $4,000 a year. We would seek to get third-party funding for that as well. We're certainly aware that funding is going to be very limited for the foreseeable future, and we certainly wouldn't want to put any strain at all on town resources. The advantage of having a web developer provide that support is that you can get stuff done really, really quickly. And we heard this from all the libraries that we interacted with. So, for example, let's say that we have a new art exhibition. This is something that Kay is working on right now with the art committee. And we need to change the format of the page. Right now, to do anything other than just adding text or a few things, we need to go first to the town, then the town needs to go to Civic Plus. Civic Plus needs to change things, and it takes a lot of town time. And the change tends to happen rather slowly, just because there are so many steps involved, and Civic Plus is probably focusing on a lot of things right now. I'm sure everybody's crazy busy with the school situation that's going on. By contrast, if you've got a support agreement, typically, just from speaking with the other libraries, they were able to get major revisions of their websites done, major upgrades, major fixes within 24 to 48 hours. And they deal directly with library staff. So that's probably the biggest differentiator in our minds, is that if library staff are able to work directly with the web developer and get responsive changes done, that allows the website to be dynamic and allows us to make a more current, up-to-date website that people are more likely to visit.
Can I add also that that's why it's important when we're measuring what Civic Plus can offer, that it's not enough to make some changes that adjust the website now so that we're happier, so that the first search is for the book catalog or whatever, but equally important is ensuring that we have a system in place that allows us to manage on a day-to-day basis and administer that website with the library having, really prompt control in order to meet day-to-day needs without having to follow, a lengthy and complicated process. It's not enough just to make it look better now by Civic Plus, but it only makes sense with Civic Plus if they can give us the assurances that they could, in effect, meet our needs the way we would expect to be met if we had a support agreement with one of these outside vendors.
Could you give an example of something that on the Civic Plus side has taken longer than say like the 24 hours that you had hoped?
So Roger, as an example, there are a few things, and by the way, we appreciate everything that you and Dave and everybody at the town has done. We don't think that the slowness, we think it comes down to Civic Plus, but just as an example, and this is compared to the other issues, this is relatively minor, but we were trying to make the picture on the front page smaller. Right now, the landing picture is like 2/3 of the page. So it really prevents us from having meaningful content on that first page where you land. We've been working to fix that for close to a year now. And Civic Plus over the past couple of weeks has started to fix the issue, but actually they didn't quite fix it. They made it worse so that you see a corner of a picture, but it's blown up now. So I think that's an example of where that's probably taken dozens of hours of library and town staff time and lots of different interactions. And after a year, this really, really basic facet of the website isn't fixed, which I think there's, at the Civic Plus level, they probably have bigger fish to fry, to be honest.
Dave, can I ask you a question? What I'm trying to understand, because we share your concern about tight budgets ahead, we understand the circumstances. And so I'm curious as to why, from the town's point of view, it wouldn't be the best choice for us to make arrangements to get funding to do this by a third party and to not burden the town, with continuing this role. I'm assuming that if we went that route, it would still be tied into the town and linked into the website, and with all of the town's protections, the same protections, I assume, that all of the other towns were concerned about when they did a similar arrangement to hire an outside party. So, I would think that, is there an issue concerning the relationship between the town and Civic Plus that we're not aware of that impacts why we would prefer to push, to make the Civic Plus arrangement work rather than simply pursue what a lot of us have determined would be a better solution?
There's no contractual restrictions or hurdles associated with using or linking to another site. So if that was the basis of your question, it's more of as few players in any operation makes things work easier. That's just been my long-term experience, and particularly in government, is the more players you have, there are complications, unintended complications associated with making things work. The internet's a little different where there are links, but there's also our concerns of having external links. People come back to the town, and whenever they see a link and there's an issue, they assume the town is actually in control of the link that they go to. And to the point that your view, the vendor will be more responsive and making changes in structural changes. If they take longer, those concerns, they contact the webmaster, which happens to be the town IT department. So that's the basis of why we're looking to see if we can still make Civic Plus work for the library.
Dave, to that point, when we reached out to these dozen peer libraries, none of them reported having any issues like that. If you go to their town websites, you can always click through. It's usually just a single button. And we understand that you can't have a ton of different providers, but sort of respectfully, what we would say is that libraries and school departments and other very large departments with dynamic content are a bit unique. And that's why we've seen, and we've asked all these towns, why do you do this? When it does, you are bringing in another provider, but usually the answer was it hasn't been an issue for them. And in fact, it takes out players, right? Because all of a sudden, town IT doesn't need to be worrying about all of these issues.
I'm sorry.
In a sense, it's more direct.
Fewer players, yeah.
Just one more thing. Forget it.
Okay, Tom.
Yeah, this concern has been around for a while. I think 7 or 8 years. And one of the situations that we haven't talked about is that, the town charter puts the town manager in charge of the library's running. The trustees are just policy people. And that is unfortunate in that, not that I have any problems with what the town manager has done in my tenure here, except that the fact that because you can't do the inspector general to be upset if they split the thing, and some of the other communities we're comparing ourselves with don't have that problem because their library trustees are under a different town charter, and therefore they can go out and bid their own situation. We have to go to the third party thing because, in all honesty, Civic Plus hasn't done a good job as far as the library is concerned. And I don't think Civic Plus has done a great job as well as the whole town has been concerned. I know that someone told me anecdotally that if they want to find something on the town website, they Google. If they want to find something in Park and Rec, they find it easier to Google Needham Park and Rec, which takes them right to, without having to do a dozen clicks to get to that from the town website. That's a situation that happens. And when it comes to the library, where there's a lot of, we want a dynamic that changes a lot and does a lot of things, it just doesn't, Civic Plus hasn't solved our problem.
I remember, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just to say, I remembered, I thought you were done. I remembered what I was going to ask before, which is that these concerns you have, I'm trying to understand, honestly, why it feels important for you for it to stay, for the library to stay on the Civic Plus platform. And I'm not sure I get it, but assuming that there are these concerns in terms of, the town needs to protect itself, we get that, we want that. I would imagine these are the same concerns that all the other towns have. Do you have relationships? Do you talk with people in Newton or Wellesley or other people who are in a similar situation who do your job so that you might be able to understand why for them it turns out not to be a problem? Is that something that might be helpful?
Oh, certainly, and I have been doing that outreach, and I think you've been hearing the library's perspective and not necessarily the mayor's perspective or the select board's perspective in some of the communities in terms of how it works. Again, the importance is I'm looking to use the tools that are available. The other thing is I think the finance committee will take of interest that if there's funds available for other activities the library would like supported, their push will be, well, the DSR4 requests that you submit every year, why wouldn't you fund them with those resources that you didn't need to make the expenditure? So that's the point that I was trying to make relative to the hard times that we're looking at.
Okay, because
Rick, excuse me, Rick is next. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
My concern or history was that we annually have brought up this subject since at least July of 2015, and it's in the minutes. And each year we've been asking with the same issues, and nothing really was adequately addressed. So at this point, we wanted to go and investigate and see if we could solve this problem ourselves. And that's what we've done. Because for 5 years we've raised this issue and nothing has been done. And actually the same reasons have been given each and every year. But the website has not improved. So I'm sort of, lost my patience on this issue. And I think we need to move, Rob and Jay and Kay have done a good job in terms of doing the research. And it seems like this is the way we should move.
Could I just add, Dave, that you're saying that the FinCom will view this as, well, if there's money out there that we have access to, why don't they spend it on what you're asking us for? Well, these are organizations that run themselves. We're not in charge of these organizations and the choices they make about what they want to fund. And sometimes a new initiative will be funded, but the foundation won't continue funding something year after year. Then we go to a different source for that. We've had to dip in to state aid funds for predictable operational expenses year after year that the town, because the FinCom would not accept those as part of the town's, the library budget through the town. So, I don't think we can't look at it both ways. We don't have control over projects that the supporting organizations will fund. We ask for funding. If they are impressed that they're important, that they fund them, then they will fund them. And they do. They spend a lot of money in support of technology for the community room and for better wireless throughout the library, including bringing it to the 3rd floor of the library, which had not been done. And these are big projects, but the town can't consider this as just part of the wallet that they can just call upon at any time to say, well, they'll pay for it, or they should pay for that. I just don't, that point of view, I think we need to present ourselves differently to the FinCom to make that clearer, that we don't control these organizations. And to the extent that there are needs that fit within their purview, they're often happy to fund them, but it's not as though we can count on them as part of our budget the way we should be able to count on ongoing operational expenses being funded by the town. This goes back to an argument we're never going to answer tonight. But I do think that the website is our face to the community. And these days, it is the face of the library to the community in large part. And it's not that great. And we should be in a different place by now. We've not succeeded up till now, but I think that as far as this board, there is unanimity that what we have is simply not up to snuff. And there's been quite a lot of opportunity for it to be improved, and it really is not an efficient way for the library to manage change on its page, and it just isn't turning out well. So I just don't understand how the fact that we are finding support for a better website, for much better service to the community, is going to be viewed by the FinCom, and therefore as just like free money, and why don't we spend it on something they suggest? I just don't understand that point of view, Dave. Is that really what you think?
Oh, Carol, you've been to the FinCom meetings with me for many years, and
yeah,
and I certainly understand and agree. You can't count on, and it's unreasonable to assume a third party should be paying for costs that are part of a program that's offered to the town. I'm just reminding the committee that I would not be surprised if the Finance Committee doesn't raise the issue when the annual budget is submitted for fiscal 2022.
They would be, just to be clear, they would be concerned about not having to spend that money?
And no, what they'll be concerned with is that you're are using resources from another party that in a couple of years you'll come back and say, oh, but the third party doesn't want to support it anymore. So and to keep the program offered, we need a DSR board to increase the library budget.
So just to speak quickly on that, you know, the cost of this compared to many of the things that the Elephant and the Friends have supported in the past is actually relatively low. There have been a number of initiatives, including the community room technology, that were quite a bit more expensive. And I don't think any of those ever came back, and we got bit by those at the FinCom. I've only been to one FinCom meeting, but the one thing that struck me was that they're looking for value. And right now, this is a fantastic value. Well, first of all, it doesn't cost a penny for the town, and we'd be seeking to get support into the future for the support services, which, by the way, are not mandatory. You don't need to have the support services. It just is the most efficient way to do it. But they're looking for value. And this is something where, especially right now, but at any time, having a viable library website that is attractive, that is usable, that is frequently updated, that gets the most value out of the library and its existing collections, because people will actually seek that out and go to it. Right now, most people I talk to don't know that the library has a website or haven't visited it. So I think if FinCom has an issue with this, speaking personally, I'm not too concerned about that. I think we could present a very strong case that this is, this is something that is warranted given the pandemic, given where things are right now. I'm not too worried about this coming back.
I think that last point on the pandemic, we should mention that in some ways, time is of the essence to take advantage of an opportunity. When we have students and families at home, you know, who might be given an opportunity to connect with their library in a way that will last their entire lives. And, you know, now's the time. With a couple of questions on the Civic Plus, if they do this additional work, does the town pay an additional fee for that, or any work that you're asking them to do at this point is for no additional fee, contemplates no additional fee by the town?
That's what I'm contemplating. Now, if they were to come back and say there's a charge for it, that's certainly something that we would have to weigh in our decision.
And how much town IT time is involved, Roger, to deal with this?
And by the way, it's not only town IT time, but all the time you're expecting Civic Plus to deal with this library stuff, not only in the setup, but in going forward. That's time that they would not have available, I assume, to work on other town matters, as compared to potentially going forward and not being burdened by any library work, so that they can focus all the time to better serve the other town websites.
Let me go back though to Roger.
I'm sorry.
May I just go back
yes.
to Roger? Yeah,
Yep.
Thank you.
Time-wise, on our part, it's really just about coordinating this effort to to move forward and change some basic structure of the website. After that, it really lies on the shoulders of the library to manage the content and all the creation that's there. So once we've gotten through this process of making some adjustments and the time that that Civic Plus puts into it, the time on the IT staff is minimal, because simply the current website that we have has been decentralized for years. The town IT has some basic administrative back end, but the vast majority of how web pages look and the content that's put on the web pages is managed by the individual departments themselves. So IT wise, after we get through this this phase of an adjustment to the pages, our limitation is waiting for the annual invoice to come, is typically where we're at in that aspect of things. We don't have a centralized quote unquote webmaster who manages every single town department. Every single department is managed by itself. And again, we learn how to do things and help people get involved and move along, but then it's more like a train the trainer type of
Well,
situation for us.
I have to back up here though. It's been a year since this changes to the website on the Civic Plus site were made. And there have been problems the whole time, and the staff, there was nothing built in to train staff. So before the new website went up, nobody seemed at the library, in my observation, nobody seemed to know how to change anything, how to work with it. And that wasn't even part of the contract for them to train.
We offered training. We do offer training on a regular basis. I would say, I mean, not regular. I mean, when we if departments request training, we offer training. Civic Plus itself has a significant library of online training, from videos to articles and blogs, and we try and share as much training material as we can with staff during changes. I think that when we did this change over to the current version, we did some initial training up front and tried to catch up with people as we could catch up with people in departments to get them online with training. And sometimes it's hard to gather lots of people together and get them to be parts of these training. And all I can say is we have offered training on how these websites work.
I think maybe Dimitri, I mean, you were trying to triage some of this. I know I've spoken with some people just informally because I was saying, well, why is this a problem? Why is our website in such a mishmash? And they said, well, we haven't been trained yet. We haven't been trained yet. And, whether, maybe they're waiting their turn. But usually when something changes, you like to have staff trained ahead of the change so that you're not just, in a mess for, this really has been
Correct.
A terrible year for the website, honestly.
And that's one reason why we've gone with this train the trainer situation, is that, we train staff within those departments. And, when new staff comes on, the staff that has been updating or working with the website usually passes that information on. And in some instances, in some situations, we've had some of the smaller departments where the person who does everything that does the website leaves, and there's anybody there really to support it. So then we will sit down and do some one-on-one training. But our training is really designed for sort of, this kind of top down where, we train people and then they share that information. And again, Civic Plus itself, on every web page, you can click a help and it'll take you to what you need to do on that web page, as well as videos and documentation as how to get things done as best as possible within the web pages, within the website.
Thank you. Anna, could you, Anna's been waiting for a moment, then Dimitri. Yeah.
Oh, so Roger, so based on what you just said, so why then, if what I'm understanding is that the responsiveness of Civic Plus is relatively quick. That's what, there's a click, there's online tutorials and so forth. So why is that banner been taking so long to be changed? And two, when should we be hearing from Civic Plus? How much longer do we need to wait?
Well, all I can say on the banner piece is that it's just timing on all the parts of all the people involved, from the IT staff to the library staff. And I think that it's just timing and getting that coordination together and trying to find the right images and trying to work out, learn these new things ourselves. And I know that at this point, we have been in contact with Civic Plus, and the person who was in my office, who has been communicating with them, she's on vac. She's had she's got these days off today and tomorrow off. So I haven't had a chance to speak with her and hear if she's heard back from Civic Plus yet on what their timing is for really just doing an upgrade on the library pages.
So to clarify, we're waiting to hear from them to tell us when they can do it, right? So we don't have a date yet.
Right.
Okay.
At this point in time, no, we do not. No.
Okay.
I know Dimitri's next. Dimitri, you used to be at Natick. Was there a separate website there? And if there was, how responsive were they?
So I can say for the 8.5 years that I was in Natick previous to coming to Needham, I was the head of reference there. We had 2 separate firms over those 8.5 years. They typically 24 to 48 hours. If there's something we couldn't do structurally, we would say, can we ask you to fix or adjust or do whatever? And, you know, these are not, you know, I think I saw them in the mix of firms, but it didn't take very long to fix things there. I just wanted to just backtrack one thing. Our staff is trained to, the content is constantly updated. We are keeping that up to date. What we can't fix are things like the banner and the things that we've spoken with Roger and Terry, and they've had to go to Civic Plus and say, how do we fix, if I understood it correctly, these particular things? And that's, I think, where the slowdown. Now, I think, and Roger, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is Civic Plus saying that if we get the training, that we can then fix those things, if that's what I'm understanding? I mean,
well, that's what we're trying to, yeah, I'm sorry. That's what we're trying to work out, is how do we change the banner? You know, how do we do things like that? And I think that there are basic structural issues on the front page of the library. Like, I go look at the Wellesley Free Library, and out of the entire page, half of it is content that comes from other websites or takes you to another website. And so it's really just about how can can our front page for the library, you know, do that same thing? Can we bring in a scrolling set of images for Canopy and let it scroll apart? Can we add these videos, these services that come from other organizations? And I'm pretty certain we can, because I've done that with the previous website, where I brought in videos and put videos into the cells on a page. So
okay,
it's just a matter of figuring it out how to do. Yeah,
and just a couple, no, that's okay. Just to address what Rob asked me too. I mean, you know, my recollection, again, in another organization, was that things like this didn't take more than a couple of days. And I understand the process here. We're going back and forth. And I just want to make clear that our staff in Needham, they are updating the content. We're constantly putting things out there. We can't fix these other things. The content, and I see Danielle nodding her head too, because she's involved with this too. And I know that, Carol, you asked me, I think Gay wanted to make a comment, and but I think there's somebody ahead of her first. So I saw Tom had his hand.
I was asking for a moment, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I have a response. I've been waiting for a while, but the DSR4s that Dave expressed, he expressed in the past, Sunday opening, early opening, were funded by, you know, outside funds, and then we had the DSR, and the town took them over, in other words. However, in this case, as I understand it, we could never file a DSR for website support, because it would be a violation of the split bid, and the Inspector General would be in trouble with us. Is that correct, Dave?
No, not in that instance, because it would be a pre-existing provider in technology, and therefore can continue year after year.
The amount would be relatively low too, but
even though it happened after we were in after we have Civic Plus institution had started?
Yes, because it would be a different application. Just like if you're using Microsoft Suite and you're using the Apple Suite, you don't need to change your Apple Suite to Microsoft just because you've changed your funding source. It's considered a sole source provider, and that's an exception that's allowed in the procurement law for software related.
So right now, if we ask the town to fund this, a third party one, or not a third party one, you know, and another one of these two that they've been looking at, if we ask the town to fund that, they could?
No, the updating, I think, is what Dave was. Weren't you speaking about the annual updating and the content, the maintenance?
The annual license fee and such.
Yeah.
The issue is how the original procurement, this gets back to the question that Jay was asking me, what is my concern? My concern's not the library having a different link to a different application. My concern is multiple departments all looking at their specialized field that has an application related to their industry that they'll want to go to. And that's where my concern about multiple players comes into play. And
are you getting pressure from other divisions who have the same problem in terms of what their needs are for a dynamic website as compared to, you know, is this an issue that you're dealing with other groups?
not so much, because the retort is we're one organization, we use one web page, and since no one has spun off, no one pushes the case.
I see. Yeah. So there's not, you know, want to make the first exception because then there'll be requests for other exceptions. Is that?
That is my concern.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, Carol, but let me just add, but we think that you would very easily make the case why the library is a special situation, and there are reasons that would justify it.
And we've got a dozen communities in our local area where we can say, listen, this is kind of the state of the art. Libraries tend to have their own websites. A totally logical concern. You don't want to have a couple dozen different website providers. But I think there's precedent out there, much like there's precedent for having the school department having a separate website. It's just for very content-rich websites. And we could point to dozens of local communities that have separate library websites, but an otherwise unified town website.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, may I just wanted to respond to something Roger that said about that some of the other websites have content coming in from other sites like Canopy, but there is, what I do for a living is I write and post content on the Mass General website. So this is what I do it day in and day out. And there is a much deeper structural problem existing with what I see on the Civic Plus platform. And I really have very low confidence that, for example, we brought up the new art exhibit. It's going online for the first time. Well, it needs its own page. Every lecture within the library website, every lecture, new lecture series needs its own page with photos on the library website. So each of these programs and new launches that we have constantly need new pages, separate pages that are part of the library website. And I don't see Civic Plus doing that at all. They need to be set up dynamically so there's places to pop photos in, so the staff can do it easily, which is what I do. I was trained, it didn't take a lot to work with WordPress, put my photos up, put my article up, and create a new page on a particular topic. So it's more than just these navigational tweaks that need to be changed. It's,
and then Kay,
we need to be able to create pages.
Okay, what you do after that is then you're able to connect it to social media easily.
Yes.
If there's a separate page, I mean, the utility
Yes.
of having this aspect of a separate
Right,
page.
you have a page, and that link then can be on social media, on Facebook and Instagram and emails. You can send out a link, and then it goes right to that page for that art exhibit, that lecture series, that, you know, so that's the way it's supposed to work.
And just if we're looking at Wellesley, for example, their town website is Civic Plus too. If you go to the town website, all of the departments have a Civic Plus website except for the library and the school department. And that's what we've seen with most towns nearby. And I think there's a very good reason why they've all headed in that direction, which is there's just too much content that's being created, as Kate pointed out. When we're coming up with new series, new lectures, new online resources, you sort of need somebody on the back end to be supporting that. And that's what these services provide, is that sort of back end support, so we can be nimble and agile with our website and get this content out to the taxpayers of the town, so they can get more value out of their library. Because frankly, right now, there's just not a whole lot on there. There's not a lot of value that they're getting. They can't be there in person. We've got curbside, but this is the virtual front door of our institution.
Carol, can I actually address some of this stuff? I can't raise my hand.
Go ahead, Dan, I hear you.
So, just so you know, I have actually been the one who's been involved with our website since the very, very beginning. And that includes when we actually had our own page. It was sort of primitive compared to what the thing is now, but it actually served our purpose. It listed our events. It got you into the catalog. It listed book lists. It had connections to various things, and it worked. And when the town had its own website, we had to change over to that. It was not as intuitive. It was not as nice. It was pretty much a fight all the way. And when we did this last changeover, we were pretty much forgotten. And I will say that bluntly, in that I was actually assigned at the last minute to one of the first training sessions, at which point I got to twiddle my thumbs because no one had remembered to give anybody at the library access to the new page for us to be able to do anything to the new page. At the moment, there's exactly 3 of us that are able to do anything constructive or meaningful to the pages. We never did get the additional training. And then we had to live with the mortification that the first week after you launched, we had an ipso facto page for the library, which got you nowhere, and nobody could find us for a solid week. And that included finding to get to the databases and everything else. So we pretty much have been teaching ourselves what we need to do. We have pretty much tried to put the square peg into the round hole to make things work for us. And we definitely had to break what we had previously for the page when COVID-19 hit. This is certainly not how we wanted the page to look, but it was the only way that we were able to get the information out to people and to be able to at least have them connections so that they could get more additional information. It's pretty ugly. I not have any hope that Civic Plus is going to make it look any better. But you know, we're pretty much operating blind at the moment. We're doing our best, but even I will be blunt and tell you that it is not how I want the current slideshow to look for the art that we've been putting up, but it's the best we can do with what Civic Plus has for tools.
I eventually found it, but it was
it's at the bottom of the page because there is no room to put it anyplace else.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Tom, do you have something different you wanted to say? Maybe we should just.
Yeah, I was just saying that you know, if Dave and Roger want to give, you know, what is the time limit to give Civic Plus? You know, we're impatient, and we've been waiting for Civic Plus to do something and to make it, you know, answer our needs. And is there a time frame that you have? I mean, I know you're busy with other things, but there is, you know, I'm sure there has to be, you know, a better way. And we don't want to have to wait for another couple of years for Civic Plus to get their act together, or us to get their act together with Civic Plus.
I think it is entirely fair to have a response and a timeline that if Civic Plus believes that they can do what we're asking, to have that in place by the end of October 2020. Again, the nature of how long it has been, Civic Plus understands our desire to have one operation, and I think having both that they can do it and a timeline to make the changes if they can do it, and be able to tell you that by the end of October is reasonable.
And they'll know at that, we'll know at that time if they're going to charge us anything more for it, because in these budgets, COVID-19 budget concerns, I don't think they should be profiting for something that they haven't been doing well.
That's fair.
And I guess, you know, our concern is we wouldn't want to have anything spent on Civic Plus until, you know, unless they can prove that they can do it. Because our worst case scenario would be the town pays them for a revamped library website and we just end up getting more of the same, because then we would have wasted town money, and it would make it a lot tougher to really meaningfully revamp the website.
And time's a wasting. This is a really important time for the library, for the community to be able to reach the library and be able to change its content easily. To be a better.
And David, can you make sure that they are asked to give us the capability of creating new pages for each major program that we're launching?
Kay, that relates to a conversation we had earlier today, and I'll start by saying I'm extremely disappointed at this response, because I'm not persuaded that the town's interests justify stopping the library from taking advantage of this opportunity at not the town's expense and with no trouble to the town to improve the library's website in a way that best reflects the values of the town. To the extent that we want to go through this process, and I think most of us feel we already know the answer, but if you do want to go through this process with Civic Plus to determine whether they can suitably do the job for the library, then I suggested to Dimitri and Ann that they should put together a list of all the specific things, that we would expect to be done so that our library matches, what we want it to be. And that also Civic Plus gives all appropriate assurances that it's not simply getting it set up now, but that they'll be responsive to provide the support that we expect in order for the library to be dynamic and content rich and serve the needs of the community. And I think we can go through that effort. And I think we know what we're going to find. Okay. And I'm not sure why it's worth the time to stop us, from moving forward. And I say that honestly, I have deep respect for the interests of the towns. I'm sure all the trustees do. And the reason we're not persuaded is that we think this costs the town no money, no effort. It makes their life better. It doesn't have Civic Plus spending time on this instead of other town. I'm not persuaded in any way. That helps me understand why there's a resistance to our proposal.
Again, I think the timeline is appropriate. I think that is also good. The list of the functionality that the library wants to see in the web page should be provided. I also think it's reasonable for.
What's the matter?
I think it's reasonable for the
library
staff to lay out.
Arguing about the website.
Somebody put their mute themselves. Yeah.
Roger, yeah, thank you.
Okay, I think it's reasonable to lay out all the functionality, because that's the same functionality you'll want to put out in terms of procuring another system to operate, because certainly anything that we're asking of Civic Plus, and if Civic Plus doesn't deliver, we would be asking of any other of the web page providers out there. The other fact is, the reason why I'm looking at this to be no cost is because we believe that if Civic Plus can deliver, they're going to have a better product to offer to all their customers, because to your point, you're finding that there are communities using Civic Plus to support their libraries because of weaknesses. As I said, I shared the material that you provided to us, which talked about the concerns with the Civic Plus. And if Civic Plus wants to keep their customer base, it will be in their best interest to deliver that functionality and to deliver it at no cost.
I guess, Dave, I'm just kind of scratching my head, and thank you for running through that. And I'm sure that, as Jay mentioned, you and Roger have a lot going on right now. But I'm scratching my head that Civic Plus can't take a quick look at this. This is what they do. This is their business. That they can't look at this website and say, oh yeah, we can do that, or no, we can't do that. It seems like a really, really simple thing for them to figure out. I mean, these are relatively, I won't say straightforward changes, but the search box at the top of the page has to search the library catalog, not the town website. I'm surprised that it would take them 2 months to get an answer to that. Why does it take them 2 months to get such a simple answer? And if it takes them 2 months to find out if they can do that, are they the best people for the job?
And or are we providing? How long is it going to take to really do it? Yeah.
Well, that could also, in all honesty, that could also be, us coordinating other things to try and get those answers as well. Too, I understand your frustration, but we don't, we reach out to them, look for an answer, do other things, get back in touch with them, see if we can get the answer from them, and moving forward. And I understand your frustration. So
I guess that's one reason.
Once Terry comes back from.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Once Terry comes back from once Terry comes back from vacation, she had this day, and I think she has today and tomorrow off. I'll have her get on top of this and see what sort of things we can get back from Civic Plus in a timely fashion.
It seems to me, Dave, that the end of October is a long time from now, given that every day matters in terms of people's access to the library resources. And also given that it's been quite a while since the last conversation where some of these issues were brought up. And so there's been time. It's not as though we're starting from today. We're starting from the last meeting when these issues were most recently raised, at least, and probably not for the first time. But so I don't think you should be saying, well, they have to have at least 6 more weeks or 7 more weeks to decide whether they can even do this. And then they haven't done it. They've just said whether they could do it, and who knows how much longer. I'm really dubious that this is going to work out, frankly, given how stodgy the feel of the website is in general. And for most purposes, that's fine, but it just isn't fine for a library.
Needing till the end of October almost helps make our case. I mean, it's like, it's exactly, what we're trying to fix.
Right. I'm sorry. What I meant by the end of October, that it will be done by the end of October. I'm hoping to be meeting with the board again at your meeting at the beginning of October to say where we're at. I'm not saying for them to come back with a plan by the end of October.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's better, more reasonable, I think. Just a moment, Tom. Rob, could you respond to the time frame issues as you see them?
Which time frame issue, Carol?
Excuse me?
Sorry, which time frame issue?
Say the end of October being a time limit to perform these additional things if it's possible, and we'd know sooner than that by the next meeting whether or not Civic Plus thinks they can do these adjustments or make these what may end up being fairly major structural changes to at least the library portion of their website, town's website. Is that a reasonable period of time in your view?
I think, yeah, if we can make a list, and perhaps JK and I can work with Dimitri and Ann and with Danielle to come up with, and these are just the top things. It's not an exhaustive list because there, frankly, there is a lot of stuff that needs to be done. And just to reiterate, we don't think that this is an inherent problem with Civic Plus. We certainly don't think that this reflects on anybody at the town. We just think that it's not, to quote Gay Allen, we're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. But if we can come up with a list of major things that need to be changed, for example, search page at the top of the page should be catalog search, not town search, changing the image, and then see where things are in October. I mean, hopefully they'd be able to address most of these by our October meeting. If later on October it appears that they're not making progress, that they're not able to make progress, then perhaps at that point, I mean, we already have authorization, unanimous authorization by the trustees to go ahead and work with an independent developer if we get the green light. So whenever we get that green light, even if it was mid to late October, we could do that, and these developers could design and implement a brand new website within 3 to 5 months after that.
We'd be up and running. It was your discussion, right? It would not just be, it would be up and running, fully integrated by that time.
Right, because at some point you have to do a drop dead with these guys. Otherwise, they're never going to fix these issues. There's a lot of them, and they've also got a lot of things in their plate, and we recognize that. Yeah. But another point, and I do thanks to Dave and to Roger for coordinating with Civic Plus, because we would be pushing for these sort of basic changes on the website, regardless of whether or not we were developing a new one, because again, it would take 3 to 5 months to completely develop and transition to a new site. So I think these are good things to be doing anyway.
Yeah, we need it now. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Tom.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. When was the Civic Plus contract awarded and how long is it for?
The original procurement happened back in 2007, and the initial term, I believe, was for 3 years. And then after that, the same thing that Tom, the same question I was answering, if you had another application that was up and running, it's just the annual licenses, and it's just every year we renew. Okay, and in that renewal process, I know you didn't have to go out for a request for proposal, an RFP, but how much in that when you upgraded, how much, because we've been bringing this situation to your attention, how much in the RFP dealt with library? We laid out all the different departments and users of the town, the website, and the responses that the town received addressed how each department could use the website. It's been 13, 14 years since that procurement, so I forget the specifics, but every department was invited to participate, and it was and the RFP was done with a combination of town employees and citizen volunteers.
If the library page,
do you remember how many people responded to the RFP?
Oh yes, I think there was probably 6 or 7. There were quite a number of proposals that we received.
Excuse me, Rob will be next. Yeah.
Just a real quick question for Dave. If the library were to move to a standalone site, would the town realize any savings under its contract with Civic Plus?
No, because it's really, we can have as many pages as we want. So some of the things that have been raised in the conversation today, we know can be done right now, having different pages for different programs, for instance. There's not an extra cost for that.
And certainly we want to do those things regardless of whether or not we go with a standalone site. But hopefully by October, we'll get a much better idea of what Civic Plus can do and what it has done.
Okay, so I think we're going to need to wrap this topic, but I guess our understanding is, Dave, that Civic Plus will, you and Roger will work with them and find out what they think they can do once with a list of things that Kay and Jay and Rob come up with shortfalls of the current page, correct? So as soon as that can come, that would probably speed up the process.
And I'll plan on attending your October meeting to give you an update. And
you'll update us. Wonderful. Okay. So that will be October 13th. So yeah. Well, thank you both very much, Roger and Dave, for coming and trying to, respond to this. Really, it's what's a very strong kind of swell of opinion that we need a different solution. So maybe we don't, but I think we at least need to find out soon whether or not the Civic Plus will work or it won't to meet our needs. So, also just as an aside, you said that, what will the FinCom do if they see that we're spending, we're getting outside support for something like a website that's not absolutely maybe essential in their view. But, we've put forward requests for things that are absolutely essential for the library, and they haven't agreed that the town should pay for those either. So I kind of, until they get a little more friendly about the needs of the library and understanding of what our need is, and I think we need to make it clearer what our needs are. We need to do a little more advocacy on that. I am the first to admit. you know, it's not really going to matter. You are not getting a lot of success there right now as it is. So, okay, well, thank you very much for joining us. And I really do look forward to seeing, you know, what can be done, even if it's only for the short term.
Can I ask one last question? I'm sorry, Carol. Who ultimately is responsible, Dave? Dave, is it entirely up to you? Who is responsible for making this final decision? How does that work?
Well, the final decision obviously would be the town manager, but but what I make recommendations will carry some weight, and importantly to me, what Roger recommends to me carries weight with what I recommend. So the key is you have two of us here.
Are the selectmen involved in this process in any way?
I do not believe so, but
they could be.
They could be, correct. I don't believe they will be, but they could be. There's no organizational reason that they would need to be involved.
Okay.
There's no legal requirement that they have to approve this in order for us to make an operational change.
Okay.
So the way it would work is that if they had an interest, they would share that with the town manager and you? Is that the way it would work?
Yes, if they had a concern, they would express that to the town manager who reports to them.
Thank you.
Yeah,
yeah, thank you, Jay. That was a good question to clarify that. Well, thank you, and I think we will move to the next agenda topic.
Thank you, David.
Welcome
Thank
to
you,
stay.
Dave. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
David and Roger,
Okay.
you're welcome to stay on all evening if you'd like to.
No, thank you. I haven't eaten. I haven't eaten
He's
yet.
got to get the raise.
Somebody needs to get out of his suit.
Dave, you got to get the raise, right?
it's tempting.
All right,
Have a
thanks
good
a
evening.
lot. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. So let's just, we're going to be rushing through some things now because it's 8:15 almost. And, but I think that was well worth exploring it in depth. Now that there's a focus on it, let's see if we can make progress.
It was very well done. Very well done. I thought it was a very good meeting. Yes.
Yeah, and I thank particularly Rob and Kay and Jay for kind of masterminding this effort, this latest effort. Rick was on the case earlier, and other people I expect, but the latest effort has been really stupendous, and I appreciate it. Okay, minutes. Let's go through the minutes for August 11th. Are there comments?
Oh, there we go. So I went through them and they looked fine and good and very thorough as usual. I had one or two small things that, I felt like on number 8, old business, I would like to see in the sentence that says Dimitri created and shared a race equity resolution task sheet, docs that identified that events staff and trustees attend virtually virtually. So because we are including the trustees in attending those events. So I'd like to put that in, if possible.
Okay, do these minutes go past you before they get to us?
Yes, usually I think that, so what happened this time is that I got an email from Ann. The minutes were not attached, and Ann said, here's the minutes. I saw they were not attached. I thought I had emailed back to say I didn't get them. Apparently I didn't. I checked my email. So I didn't get them until whatever it was, Thursday. So I went over them then.
But normally you will see these go past you before they ever get to us to make these changes that you.
I think, isn't that the procedure? I'm just doing this for the first time. So
yeah, should be.
That's the procedure, right?
Yeah, and
yeah.
If Ann wants to, go over them after Jeff produces them, I think that's fine, but it needs to get to you in a reasonable period of time. So
yeah, and it, there was a little bit of a mix up, but
yeah,
next time I'll send my email the way I had thought I had.
Okay, so Jeff, there's a change there that is being recommended. Did you catch it? And number 8.
Yes, I can go back here too. So I'll play the Zoom video and give exactly that statement there thing. I think I was trying to edit things up and I took the trustees out to save words and try to get it to at least like 6 or 7 pages rather than 8 or 9 that it started in. So
Yes.
I might have cut your name out just to save a couple of words. I'll put them back in.
We think you, by the way, you do a great job with these minutes. I couldn't be more impressed with how good.
Yes.
My thank you so much.
It's a lot. It's hard to do, and especially knowing that somebody can go back and look at a recording.
I know, that's a little scary.
Triply obligated to just get it all in there. I do think that we probably can summarize to some extent, and that would be acceptable if you can figure out how to do it. I had a couple of things on page.
Yeah, so
3.
can I just finish? I had one other thing, Carol.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I just wanted to go, and number 9, Kay will be, it's in the library arts, and it says Kay will be meeting with Carol on Wednesday. Then it says there are no plans to launch anything yet. That I don't think that was the meaning of what I basically, at that point, I didn't know if there was anything. So I would just strike that sentence. There were plans, but I just didn't know about them yet.
Yeah, okay.
So I would strike that sentence.
Strike that, okay. And anything else that you see?
That's all.
Okay, and page 3, paragraph 5. It's a continuation of financial statements. And I was questioning whether in the last line of the last paragraph, the last line says, noted that fiscal 21 trust fund spending allotments will be examined at a later date when the fiscal 21 interest report is received. Isn't that the fiscal 20 interest? You're muted, Anne. You're muted.
It should say fiscal 20.
Yeah, I thought that should say 20. Okay. And then on page 4, in the first, it's not even the first full paragraph, the continuation from the previous page concerning the library website. In the 4th line, responsiveness is the beginning of the line. This slow responsiveness is why the library needs a, I don't know if I'd say better, I'd say maybe more specialized. Was that really the message, that it was really better website, or just more suited to us?
Was it probably the exact words, if I know Jeff?
Both.
Depends who you ask, but.
No, I mean, he watches the film again.
That was the word, huh? Okay. All right, and the 3rd full paragraph, Sterling Brand Works in the 2nd line. I think that says STIR. Is that correct? Sterling?
I believe it's STER. It's a last name.
Oh, okay. I thought I'd seen it written in some of your material as an I. Okay.
Actually, no, you're right, Carol. I'm sorry. I just Googled it. It's STIR.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And yeah, and then in the, at the last paragraph on that page, I think what we voted was, the resolution was to authorize, this is the 4th line, to authorize the website working group to prepare a letter to town officials advocating for the new website of town officials on behalf of the trustees, which is what happened, correct? The letter that you drafted, Rob perhaps drafted.
Jay, yeah.
All of us signed at the bottom of that, and we had authorized you to do that. Right. So those 2 things, to authorize the website working group to prepare, and then after the next line, Needham town officials, I'd put in on behalf of the trustees advocating. Page 5. And page 5, I just think it's pandemic policy. In the first paragraph there, the 3rd line, it should be the Board of Health. That's what it's called here in Needham, rather than Public Health Department. And that's all I have. Anyone else?
I do, Carol. Yeah, so under 8 business, page 6, under Facebook comments.
Yes.
Yeah, last line where it says Cindy Gonzalez that the library should post to the town's web Facebook page. Really, it should not be the town's Facebook page, but it should be the Needham group on Facebook, because it's not the Needham Town official page. It's allowing the library to post on the Needham group page on Facebook.
And so the Needham group, let's say that again, could post to the...
As opposed to town's Facebook page, which the town does have a Facebook page, but that's not the one we're talking about. We're talking about the Needham group on Facebook.
Needham group page on Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it for me.
All right. Could I have a motion to accept these minutes as revised just now?
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. Kay, you're muted, but I see you. So you're seconding? Thank you.
I second.
Okay, thank you. I have to go down the list. This I will do. All in favor? Anna?
Yes.
Kay? Kay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rick?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
And I as well. So that is unanimously adopted. Thank you. Accepted. Director's report. Anne, thank you. We have, there's one thing that needs a vote, which is the gift list, but there's probably more to be discussed that is not, has nothing to do with that one vote. So I would first have us do vote on the gift list, just so we get that out of the way. On page 4 to 5 are listed the gifts that have been made to the library. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Who said that?
Anna.
Anna. Thank you. I didn't see your mouth move. Thank you. Second.
Second.
Okay. Second.
Yes.
Something, maybe it's my computer. So everything's very clipped tonight. All in favor? I'm just going to go down my list again. Here we go. Anna?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye. Sorry.
Jay?
Aye.
And I am aye. So that is unanimously voted to accept those gifts. Thank you.
I just wondered about the gift list, the very last line about Keith and Lynn McClellan donating a copy of Ginger Bolton's new book. Ginger Bolton is Keith's sister.
Yes. I guess I know just because I know him, but I guess I wouldn't know it otherwise, that's for sure. Is there anything else you'd like to expand on, Anne?
She has a new editor, that's why she has a new name. Okay. She has a new editor, yeah, or a new publisher.
Oh, a new publisher.
Has a new name.
So, Anne, do you want to delve into any of this?
Not really. We're still catching up on statistics. And that's about it.
And statistics, I just like to make a comment that, you know, the numbers when the library is operating normally is, yeah, okay. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, we don't make a big deal of it, but when you think of 11,000 books or materials actually bagged and curbside pickup, that's a lot of work. So
that's an impressive number.
Yeah, everybody's to be commended for that. because that's a lot more work.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very labor-intensive job.
I also noticed this, I was kind of wanted to remark on the 20 participants in which portion of the children's, or the teen, maybe it was the teen reading, read 10 out of 20 participants read 30 books this summer. And I thought that was a pretty neat statistic, impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And I also was very impressed that one of the young adult painting classes got 29 attendees, which is
Chelsea, Chelsea.
Virtual paint. Yeah.
Very popular.
That was my son attended that, and it was really a hit. I think it was a great. I've done the one in person before COVID, and it was really very, very dynamic. Chelsea has a very great style to engage people, so I was curious to see how the virtual would go, and it went great. Hopefully there'll be more opportunities for kids now, particularly with, like a way to let this team out. Hopefully there'll be another chance to do a repeat.
Well, I can tell you that I am asking for funding from the foundation for an adult paint class.
Oh, excellent.
Just getting a good following.
In some ways, the the person who read all those books, somehow we should highlight them in the town newspaper. That's something to be proud of.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there are a mention in here of Veronica and Paula under Children's having continue to curate relevant links for the web page, including number of sites for teachers on anti-racism. That would be a good thing to add to our list, don't you think, Dimitri? I don't know if that's
yes, I do. And to bring that up, I know this report was a little freeform in terms of statistics, because I'm intending to create a better spreadsheet where we're going to put in, we can better metrically count, workshops, additions, materials, all of those sorts of things. This was put together very quickly. It's a little freeform, and it's a little loose. I understand that, so it needs better structure.
But when you see something, you jot it right then, put it in the same place, put that little, thing in the suggestion box or the list box, and then when it comes time, you got it. Everybody's got their own system. Let's keep moving. Buildings and grounds. Is there anything on buildings and grounds that somebody wanted to discuss? I see that we're probably going to hear more in a month or so after Angel goes through some of the aging work orders. They've been pending for quite a while, some of them. But there has been a good progress, and I would commend Angel on, for one thing, just, he and his, the other custodians keeping up with the daily cleaning that's necessary right now, with a lot of extra work, but also getting some of these other things done. The lobby bluestone was reconditioned, and painting in the 3rd floor, and finally those parking lines got redrawn in the parking lot, in the Rosemary parking lot. So that's good progress, good something to see. And I look forward to hearing how these other things can get ticked off of our list, and these improvements made that either we saw or the Commission on Disabilities pointed out as needed doing, particularly in the kitchenette of the community room. Financial reports. You want to walk us through this, Ann, or?
Have your report from the state aid account. I've listed all the expenses from the start of this fiscal year.
Yep.
Plus one from the previous one. Big bills this time. The Overdrive basic subscription, $25,701.
That's the annual?
That's the annual for the basic subscription, yes.
Yep.
And I have no feel for what's going to happen if we're going to get the same amount of state aid this year as last year. No idea what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, everybody's got the same problem. There's, you know, that we've spent money on other things this year, and it's been a bad year.
Well, some libraries are in worse shape than we are.
Yeah. Okay, and if there are no questions on the state aid, let's look at the trust funds. And I see that, you know, you've listed what we've spent this time, which under disbursements, you've listed what is encumbered, which I assume are orders that you've put in, but haven't been.
These expenses are things that you approved last year. We're spending them. That permanent donation fund, it's mostly friends and foundation money on materials, because the it took a while to set the book budget up and get all the purchase orders in. And of course, right in the middle of that, I had to do the 2 weeks quarantine. That didn't help at all. So we're all set now. We've got our contracts in place and people are ordering off of those.
And now we'll be expecting to get information probably next month as far as how much interest was added to these trust funds for in fiscal 2020.
Right, and maybe next month, maybe the month after. It doesn't seem to come at any specific time.
Okay, all right. And then the town budget, you gave us the final for fiscal 20. And a question I had was, for instance, in the balance, does this $60,000 go to free cash, or what happens? You know, it's this money that was not spent that's in the balance. Is some of that still earmarked for us to spend or not?
Very, very little. Most of it will go to free cash. There's very little left to be spent.
What does free cash mean? I'm sorry. What do you mean when you say it goes to
free cash? Is what's left over from all the departments' budgets. Money that they thought they would spend.
It goes to the town, you mean?
It goes back to the town and they spend it. The town meeting can spend it. Yeah.
It's all aggregated and sent to the state treasurer, I believe, for certification, and then comes back to the town, paper-wise, comes back to the town, and that's what you get some of your large expenses on at town meeting, the capital items. There'll be a warrant article for things to be purchased from free cash.
Got it. Thank you.
And could you clarify for me the second footnote on this, the 2 asterisks? What does that footnote actually relate to? What column? It says orders have been placed but not necessarily received yet.
No, probably the books. Most likely books.
But which figure does it relate to?
I got a copy.
Annual budget isn't going to be yet spent since last report, spent to date. I guess spent since last report, is that what that goes with? Or I guess it doesn't go with the balance.
Uh-oh, it's not here. Can you hold the paper up? You have a piece of paper, or is this on your screen?
I don't know if you can see anything like this.
You're not going to see it that well.
Can you see it at all?
Somewhat.
Never mind. I'll ask you privately. It's not going to be worth the time. I will ask you. Kay, I think you had something.
I just quickly wanted to ask about the free cash question. Is there any way to anticipate that the money's not going to be spent and to use it for something else at the library, or is it,
this year
to go back to the town?
Difficult year. We were told in March not to spend any more money because the town had no idea what its expenses would be vis-a-vis COVID-19 stuff. So we had to stop spending our book money. Usually we have encumbered money and we spend it. Or sometimes you don't spend it all. You think you're going to spend it all, but if, especially with the books, not quite enough got published to spend it.
Well, this year publication.
No way to kind of use it on other things.
Publications get postponed.
Yeah.
They don't always get published when you think they're going to be. When you're handling a budget for Baker and Taylor of $130,000 for books, adult, young adult, and children's, it's really difficult to come out to the penny.
Yeah, well, you know, we usually do a lot closer though, Kay. This is quite unusual.
It's a bad year.
Yeah, quite unusual circumstance, but quite unusual number that was not spent. Tom?
Yes, a couple of questions. First of all, I'm glad Greg has passed away. If he saw this,
yeah,
that would have done him
no,
in.
I'm not saying that. But also, why did I don't understand why the salaries went up. Why did they go over budget?
Well, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but there was a number that was missed.
Oh, okay. All right.
What do you mean? A number that was missed?
A number that should have been bigger than it was.
Okay. But you say it was covered.
Yep.
So
You have to go to who'd you have to go to transfer the fund from salary to someplace else?
Kate.
Kate? Yeah.
Okay. All right, statistics, let's move along. We already had, expressed our awe that 11,000 individual things were picked up curbside. Actually, there were a lot of electronic things, which, it gave that a boost as well. Is there any other comment on statistics? The website hits are high, despite the website. Maybe people keep trying and trying and trying to find that thing.
Incidentally, while you were talking to Dave, I took on the computer on my desk, I looked at the Wellesley Town website. It's kind of as static as ours is. It's not impressive.
That most towns use Civic Plus. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, libraries are different.
That's
right. Doesn't fit libraries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move to new business. We had a request, which I believe was sent around to everyone by someone from the International Women's League of what was it? Something and Freedom.
The Women's International League for Peace and Freedom.
Peace and Freedom, excuse me. I asked Kay, since the way this came through and the context really was that I viewed it as something we might consider only if it's the type of exhibit that we would, that would pass muster for an exhibit within the library, and that not being possible right now as an exception to our usual no exhibits, no signs on the lawn, we would allow this exhibit to be posted outside. I didn't see those, the exhibit itself, the slides, until today. I asked Kay to look at them as well. And so the question, I think the beginning question is this something that we would want to have in the library, were it possible even to have it in the library? And so Kay's opinion, go ahead.
No, well, in reading the content of these posters, I thought it was very dense and not very readable, not very accessible, kind of had some contorted logic that wasn't terribly well backed up, and it was not accessible to children at all. And even high school kids, I think, would scratch their head at what the heck this was supposed to be. It was about the year 1945, and it had to do with the UN and the end and the dropping of the atomic bombs. But I just felt like the content was not clear. It was very dense and not accessible.
Yeah, There were other aspects of this which, would have raised problems, but I thought, to me, the initial question had to be answered. And if the answer to the question is no, we would not consider this to be something we would approve, the art committee would tend to approve for, or the trustees would approve for an indoor exhibit, then we shouldn't approve it for an outdoor exhibit either. In the background, I did have contact with Kate Fitzpatrick about this. Some question about whether the Board of Selectmen has jurisdiction over this town property, or who has jurisdiction. In any case, Kate approached a couple of the select board, the chair and I think the vice chair of the select board, talked about it. And she responded that if this was an exhibit that we would have indoors and the signs were of a kind that wouldn't blow away, she had no objection to doing it. But so that brings us back to the initial question, is this something we'd want? Regardless of the topic, my opinion at least was also with Case that this was not a very engaging exhibit, even though the subject matter is serious and important, and probably the subject matter is of interest, this particular exhibit. I personally wouldn't vote for having. Did others look at those, have time to look at those slides today? Any of you?
I looked up my birthday, it wasn't there.
Oh, Tom.
I was born in 1945. That's an important thing, and
yeah,
it should have been there.
Yeah. So did anyone else think about it in terms of whether this is something they would want exhibited at the library?
I didn't get to see the slides, but we have a policy that says that we do things indoors but not outdoors. Although we could then say with COVID, with no indoors, then maybe we could make an exception to go outdoors.
Yeah.
But then based on the description, again, not seeing the slides, based on the description in terms of the spacing of the signage, I don't think we've got enough space to be able to even if we wanted to be able to have it displayed the way they want. And then there's also a comment about then they also want $200.
Well, that would be off the table as far as we were concerned. I think that wouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
I think the other aspect as part of this exhibit, when they would normally propose it, is there's at the end a mailbox, and a child can reach in and pull out a crane to take home. Well, certainly that isn't going to happen during COVID. People touching the same surface, it just wouldn't fly. Hard to know how to approach this when most of you probably haven't had a chance to look.
Well, it would be simple to...
Sorry, Rick. I was just going to say that I did read the slides, and it did seem a little dense. I didn't read it closely enough to know whether any of the content was objectionable or anything. Is there standards in place that for when we decide whether to allow something inside? That's my first question. Are there particular standards that supposedly we should be referring to when making this decision? And my second question, have we had outdoor, because I think the idea, honestly, of an outdoor exhibit such as this sounds like potentially a good idea, whether, the library is open or closed, so long it's a good exhibit and it's, and engaging and helpful and all that. And I'm just curious whether we've had similar exhibits like that before.
I believe we've not had exhibits on the lawn before. The extent of signage on the lawn has been to either advertise a book sale or to advertise Art in Bloom, a library program, and not an exhibit. And there is a library policy about lawn signs, prohibiting lawn signs, at least for advertising, other than that type of sign. There is a library policy on exhibits for indoors, and that does have standards, as Kate could probably describe too, but it depends on the quality and what the committee and then eventually the trustees view as the level of community interest in this. particular exhibit. So I think the level of interest may be pretty high in this, but I think the quality of the exhibit is not high. I think that it's so dense that nobody would read it. You certainly couldn't read it unless you spend a lot of time in front of each of those signs, because each one was very long and dense. And it wasn't particularly well written, and it needed a lot of editing.
I'm comfortable with deferring to your thoughtful judgment about the content. I would simply say that from my point of view, I think the idea of having an attractive lawn presentation, especially while the library is closed, that does not offend my sensibilities,
And that was the view of the select board member that I spoke with, and it was the view of Kate. It's my view that as an alternative, while the library's closed, if you can figure out a way to do it, I mean, a type of display that's weatherproof and whatever, I thought it was kind of a good idea, but I don't think this is the maiden voyage we want to make with this, alternative display location. I would much prefer to start with one I felt a lot better about. So can I have a motion from someone as to whether to pass on this, to accept this request subject to conditions, or?
I guess, can I move that we reject the proposal to post the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom exhibit outdoors? Is that what we're going for?
Question would be whether or not we actually have to need a vote, given that we have a current policy that would prohibit it. So it'd be simple to respond and saying that at present, the policy says that we don't do this, and we're not at this point ready to change the policy.
Well, I would, for discussion purposes, I would say that is not necessarily the issue with this, because we have more or less been allowed to make an exception to our policy. We can make an exception to our own policy, and the town has been willing to make exception to their policy for something during the shutdown.
So the correct motion would be, do we want to first make an exception to the policy?
That's
allow this, yeah.
Yes, to allow this particular exhibit. I think that would be the way to frame it.
Okay, so okay, don't you want to frame it?
Ian has a question.
Yeah.
I just am uncomfortable with making exceptions. You make an exception for one, you're going to get in trouble because you have to make an exception for everybody at that point.
Okay, well, we're not going. If we decide against, then we haven't made an exception in this case, and would have to be a much more convincing case, I guess, would be the upshot. And I understand your point, but there may be that we may eventually want to change our policy on this. I don't know.
To you,
Rob.
Thanks, Carol. So from a free speech perspective, the library is a public forum, and people can express their views. They can hand out pamphlets. They can put posters up to the extent that there are areas where the public can put posters up, and those are protected by the Constitution. But other places where messages are not typically displayed are not protected by that doctrine unless you start displaying them. Mm-hmm. So there is that risk that and I happen to agree with many of that group's goals, but by opening that up, that would, and I think we were alluding to this earlier, that would limit our ability to exercise discretion over other groups that may want to do that in the future.
I think we would still maintain control as to our judgment of quality of the exhibit and whether it met, whether it violated the prescription in our policy against promotion of a religious or political belief, which are pretty hard.
Once something becomes a public forum, our policies drop away. They don't matter at that point, and people can put anything that is religious, that is political, if it's a recognized area where people can put in things that support one viewpoint or another. It's just something to consider.
Are you saying that the library doesn't have control over what can be put on right out on the lawn outside or whatever outside the library?
No, not right now, because people don't really do that. It's not really an accepted forum. But for example, if somebody were handing out pamphlets in front of the library, there's not really anything we could do about that.
Right. All right, well, that color may color some people's vote on whether we should make an exception to this policy and open the door. So Kay has a motion on the floor as to whether to make exception to allow this exhibit. Is that correct?
Yes, so I guess the motion would be, my motion would be to make an exception to allow a lawn exhibit. That's what we're voting on.
Whether to, yeah, okay. So their motion is to allow it, to make an exception
Yes,
to allow
the
it.
motion is.
Okay, anybody second?
Second.
Okay. So all in favor?
Roll call.
Here we go. Anna, are you in favor, making exception?
Muted.
I think that's no.
I think you're muted, yeah.
You're on mute.
I said, so, nay.
All right, so, okay, and Kay,
Nay.
Rick,
Nay.
Tom,
Nay.
Rob,
Nay.
Jay,
Nay.
and myself, nay. So unanimously turned down this request.
Do you have to give them an explanation or to tell them what our concerns were? Or, I mean, how would that work?
I'll work on that.
Anne can handle that administratively, I think.
Bye, Carol.
Yeah, we'll work on that one. Okay. The only other new business was to begin a discussion, and I think we should keep this quite general because of the hour, of the strategic planning, the system for doing the strategic plan preparation for the next period of time, whether it's a 5-year plan, which is we've had in the past, or a somewhat shorter, I guess is allowable. Anne, could you just let us know what your thinking is about how to approach that, and who's going to do it, and how we're going to get started, and when?
Dimitri and I have discussed this, and Dimitri's taken several courses on writing a plan. There's also a lot of help available from the Mass Board of Library Commissioners on just what they want, but we haven't started writing anything because we still have another year to go in this plan. And there's nothing that says you can't be without a plan for a year. I mean, you don't have to be in the year trying to do one thing and write another thing, because we're all kind of super busy right now.
If I could add something, and of course we're in a very unique time too. All libraries are looking at their strategic plans and where we're going forwards. I've been in contact with 3 to 5, consultants that other libraries and state library organizations use that are well regarded. And everybody's kind of cautioning just to wait a little bit, see where we are when the new year starts in January. Mm-hmm. And hopefully by then we'll see, are we going to be open to the public? Are things going to continue the way they are? How successful libraries that have opened to the public are. I mean, I saw there's a suburban library in, I think, Maryland, and I think it's somewhere else in Mid-Atlantic that had opened. They had some COVID cases. They closed to the public again, went back to curbside. So, so Ann and I are definitely working on it and talking about it. I'm making some prep for it. Whatever we kick off doing, it won't be till January, and hopefully we'll have a better sense, like I said, like many other libraries, our strategic plan going forward will probably incorporate a lot of different things that we hadn't incorporated before. And we'll certainly heavily revise many of the things that libraries have been doing up until now, depending on what the world looks like. So,
I mean, I don't think we necessarily should say, well, we can't make any plans because
no.
COVID.
And that's That's not what I'm suggesting, no.
Yeah, yeah. I think we do, and I would, unless it's just impossible to get input from the community during this time, which is an element of the planning process. I would not advocate going without a plan for a year just because it's inconvenient. I think I would probably try to pick out things that are really important to us, you know, and focus. Maybe next time, and I would probably advocate for this anyway, that we have fewer goals and really make sure we make progress on those goals.
And you want to remain flexible also.
And obviously much of what we're going to be doing forward is going to be virtual, and the website, as this plays right into it, is going to be a very key factor in what we're going to be offering our community going forward. So this is kind of dovetails quite nicely with, in a sense, of how things are happening, what we're looking to change here. So
I think so. I think that will, if we were writing the plan today, one of our goals would be, a really excellent website,
right,
as opposed to what we have right now. And Dimitri, Anne, you're proposing to delegate the preparation of the plan in the first instance to Dimitri?
Right.
First track. Okay. I would expect that you would be heavily involved too. You are, our jefe, whatever.
El jefe.
Jefa is feminine.
I don't know what the.
Oh, jefa. Sorry.
Yeah, jefa.
Is it jefa? I don't know.
Yes, jefa.
Yeah. Well, I started out. I got my instincts were right.
You did, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Sorry.
Okay, so I think for now, let's just keep talking a little bit each time as you progress with those thoughts. And I think it is important that we have community input. So be thinking about how we could get community input if in fact, at the time we would like to proceed, we don't have people in the library building, no patrons or limited. Let's go to old business, please. Equity and inclusion. I see there's a nice long list.
And I hope to get it into a better format, readable format that makes a little more sense and metrics.
This is what you call the free form report.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and I think this needs to be turned into some nuggets that can be used elsewhere, yep, without having, the whole laundry list. It's fine, I guess, to give it to us if you don't mind doing that. But I think we should think about how to summarize some of this, and also think about who else in town might like to know about these things and communicate with them, whether it's the Diversity Initiative or the Human Rights Committee or the Interfaith Group or Unite Against Racism, or different groups in town that might like to have their attention drawn to these things. Maybe there is a suitable place to communicate that, whether it's with an email to the head of each group and they have their own list, or for circulation, or Facebook page. So
I have a couple of questions.
Anna, yes.
No, this is great. It's I am excited to read all these titles and all the activity that's been happening. Couple of questions on page 8. The numbers, what are the numbers about? Are there number of people or number? It said provide bias trainings, trustees, staff and trustees attended, and then there is different numbers next to the quotes. Is this?
This is the number. This is the number of people who attended.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and that is a combination of staff and trustees.
It is for the trustees who reported to me.
Okay, got it. Okay, and one question: since there's so much activity, one thing that would be a great thing going forward, to add to Carol's point of summarizing, if we could have the 3 buckets that map out to the resolution, one being training, one being programming, and one being materials, right? So that we know, maybe if we are a little heavy on the training, then okay, maybe we need to shift to the programming and vice versa. So,
Okay.
And the resources, I think the resources are very important, and those are ones that I was thinking in particular we might want to share with some other groups, as to know what resources the library has identified that might be of interest to them.
Sure.
yes.
Yeah.
Did this document come with the regular packet? I'm just looking.
It's part of the director's
Part of the
report.
director, yeah, sorry.
Oh, part of the director's report. Okay.
Last page.
Page
Is,
8.
All right, that explains it.
7 and 8.
Guess I didn't read far enough.
okay. So, and, you know, some of these, I think you've got a duplication of the same course here, but that doesn't matter. I think it's really impressive how much training staff and trustees have engaged in. And so, but I agree, it would be helpful to be able to summarize and come up with some nuggets. Okay, so anything else on that resolution? And then thank you very much for that report. Strategic plan, Anna has asked to postpone her report until next month. Will October work, do you think, Anna? Or
yeah, I plan to do it brief one, also knowing that Dave will be coming back, so with some reporting. So I expect the meeting to take, you know, that discussion to take a lot of the meeting time. So, but I can do that for October.
Wonderful, thank you. Marketing and outreach, anything? Diversity, anything else that we haven't gone into?
Yes, the under diversity programs, which now falls also under the equity resolution, we've had for 2 years in a row the diversity discussion book club, and we are in conversations to start that again. I asked Anne and Dimitri to give me some information on the type of support they can provide given the circumstances, and you know, will be the typical support. Ellen will be managing the Zoom account, and we could still buy books. So the next step is meeting with the committee, which is, so that's where we are right now. So we're hoping to come up with ideas to address, you know, being virtual, being also there have been many book clubs that have started in town. So how do we make it, you know, how do we add value, right? So we're in discussion, so that's where we are.
Yep, okay, great, thank you. One book, I assume.
There's not right now until I can figure out a better way to do it. I think this year we missed our opportunity, but we have to be virtual. We'll find a different way to do it going forward.
Yeah. Facebook.
I think since the last meeting, you know, the super comments that patrons have made about the library in the last 4 weeks speak for themselves.
The service that's been provided. Yeah.
Exceptional.
Yeah, that's it.
An awful lot of response positively about the photos, the house photos.
Yeah.
A lot of activity in that, and I think that was very good.
That dominates Facebook.
They say digital Commonwealth. That doesn't give us enough credit, but it's good anyway.
Well, it's interesting because we posted some months ago, maybe a year ago, that we had these things available. But I think it was the fact that people are now at home.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, we didn't get much of a reaction, you know, a year ago, and we've got a phenomenal reaction to the exact same thing.
And there have been, you know, been articles in the local papers about the availability of those, and for several years, probably 2 years anyway. Yeah. Okay.
Can I just add one thing about that we've accomplished? We've gone through, what was it, 4,000 reserves that we cleaned up.
Wow.
All the backlog is cleaned up in reserves. We had buckets and buckets and buckets of books on the second floor, and it was so nice to see every day the bucket list got a little shorter, and finally it's gone. So now we're doing right the day that you, the day after you put a reserve in, we're checking the shelves for it now. So that should make people happier.
Danielle, do you have a comment about the?
Oops, sorry, I have a loud noise in the background, but I just wanted to say, yeah, people love those historical photos. Every time we post them, people go wild over them. So they're always extremely popular. And I think especially now because people are home, you know, they're curious, they're maybe doing some renovating. It's really, people love them.
Yeah, that's great. That's really paid off in spades, hasn't it? That digitization, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Capital planning, there's really nothing new on that. And appropriate patron behavior, Anne says nothing is ready through her. I think I gave you something to look at, so you can respond to that, hopefully for October. Anne?
Yes.
Ditto for the children in the library. I think you have my comments on what you've done. So we'll get to pandemic policy. There's more than one way to go about doing a pandemic policy. And I don't know if you looked at Westford's and considered whether to circulate that as well as the one that we.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you didn't have it as part of the package. The one that we have is sort of a framework. It's a policy, the way it's drafted, it would supersede other policies in case of conflict if it were called into effect. It does have some detail, maybe too much detail about what we would do in the event it was needing doing in case of a public health emergency, and it refers to that. Doesn't have to be a pandemic, and could be something less widespread. In any case, the approach that Westford took was actually much different. It was really, if this happens, you know, we'll abide by what's required by the state, the town government, Board of Health, and beyond that, we'll figure out what we need to do and we'll do it. But it gives the administration, trustees, I guess it's probably trustees of the library as well, some leeway to decide what that is, without saying, oh, we might do curbside or might do this, or we might have to, you know, remove some services or close the building, or, you know, getting into too much detail. But I think ours is sort of a middle ground. We don't have a whole laundry list of options, but we make some sort of hints about what might need doing. So I wondered if you've had a chance to read it, if there are any thoughts on that policy, the way it's proposed.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I just had a, I would like, as a communication professional, to have communication be very high on the communication with the public about the library services be listed very high in the document. I see it's at the very end.
The end,
to me,
yeah.
That's one of the most important things. If the library services are going to change in some way, some will be available, some won't. Communicating that upfront, clearly, and in a place that people can find it easily is a top priority.
Can you write something and send it to me?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
So what else? And just moving it up mostly, or you think something different?
Well, I just felt like stating that communicating with the public about changes in library service will be a high priority, and the library website will serve as the front door to services. I already wrote a little sentence.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay. So send it along.
Okay.
If you have it all bundled, you can just give it to us now if it's that short, but if not, why don't we, if you send it along and we'll tinker a little bit more. Are there any other thoughts on this? Anna?
And along those lines, does it make sense to add in this policy, you know, the go-to people for children's once we're closed and curbside pickup, so that we know what to do once the library closes? Because if I'm reading this, it's like, okay, this is what the library is doing, but then how do you direct the public?
I don't see
Or
that
is
as
that something else? I don't know.
Work. That's not policy.
Excuse me?
I think that's too specific to be in a policy.
Well, maybe what Kay has in mind and what you're thinking might actually be able to be put into something that's general enough to be flexible, but Anna, but give the clear message that there will be a path.
Right. So some centralized source of information, in the website or I don't know. Yes. Or Facebook or something.
So
what are the different channels?
Right.
Can you communicate with each other, Kay and Anna, on that point? Okay. I know you're going to be away, Kay, but
yeah, I am.
For the next meeting, perhaps you could. Well, if you've already got it, already written up.
Well, I can send the sentence that I have, and you guys can work with it.
Send it to Anna as well, so she can see if that maybe fits the bill. So, anyone else on this? Big J.
I'm sorry, it's not on this, but I noticed something about the lawn policy. If I could just make one comment about that, I hate to go back, but as I read the policy, we don't make stuff available on the lawn except for library functions, so that if the library wanted to put an exhibit on the lawn, that would not be inconsistent with the policy as I currently read it, so that we wouldn't be making an exception to the policy by allowing the lawn signs.
I think they were not exhibits, but I think they were, the prohibition was on advertising. No? Right, it says, but I thought we were making an exception to the policy because we were interpreting the policy as not allowing, outdoor exhibits. Well, it isn't necessarily that, because the wording of that lawn policy doesn't even make reference to displays. But this would be really a different, this also would relate to town policy against this type of thing. We're okay. Not. Okay. Sorry, I just questioned whether the vote was about making an exception to the policy. And as I read the policy, technically, if you can treat an outdoor exhibit as a library function, it would not be an exception to the policy to allow it to happen. Okay. Maybe not. Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with you, but in any case, I think that whether it's a written policy or something that has not been allowed in the past by the trustees, consider that the history, the policy, okay. Unwritten. Yeah, okay. So we get to skip over number 9. We've already done that. The website, Art and Exhibits Committee, Kay,
just briefly, we had our first committee meeting. And I have to say, thanks to Gay Ellen, she has that wonderful Naomi Willsey rotating exhibit up. As we know, it deserves its own page. It's too bad it's dangling at the bottom of our long list of other items. But hopefully that's something we'll have resolved. We also there's actually a bunch of art exhibits already scheduled. Oops, I had this in front of me. And for the coming several months. And we also discussed trying to expand diversity in our art exhibits and get get some artists of color to show their work. So Gail made the suggestion of targeting February, which is Black History Month. And I have volunteered to do some outreach to various multicultural groups and see if we can find somebody with that target date in mind. And also not just for that 1 month, but going forward, keep that on the front burner in terms of getting more diversity of art.
Yeah, we don't want it to be token effort,
right,
but
not a just Black History Month only thing.
I did want to say that if there are things that your committee, applications that your committee approved, that you need to have them stamped by the trustee board. So
yeah, I don't think we improved anything new except the Nelson Hammer, is that his name?
Yes, Nelson Hammer, and he is for next month, if we have approval.
Was that a new approval, or?
He was previously from June.
Okay, so he had already been approved.
He had not been approved because he had not applied.
He did.
He had not applied, and so we did not rule on his paperwork. He had not submitted paperwork at the last meeting while I was still in charge. So,
all right, I did get paperwork on him.
Okay, so that needs to be approved. We
need to approve it now. It's for October, so.
I would like to just put that on the floor now. We have had his artwork another time. It was really quite beautiful. Maybe you can describe it if either of you recollected it.
It is birds.
Beautiful bird artist.
Yeah. He also has some beautiful portraiture he's going to be adding, as well as some, I guess, views, so to speak. So it's not all going to be just birds. It's going to be other things. He's already sent me some examples of what he is proposing to do, and I'm expecting final pictures from him shortly.
Okay, so he's going to put this up in the same place or a better place?
It's going to be in the same location until we can get something better on that page or figure out something better we can do to lift it up. It's going to be in the same location. I will tell you that the Senior Center, in their emails for today, did a major promo for Naomi and her slideshow, telling people to come to our website with the address.
Great. I mean, it's not so great because once you get to the address, you're not there yet.
It's hard to find it. Yeah.
Well,
but still, we all know about that. We've talked about that.
We know the problem, right?
So could I have a motion if one of you would like to propose it to approve having Nelson Hammer do a virtual exhibit in October?
Okay. I move to approve Nelson Hammer's work for October in the virtual art exhibit.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Let's go down the list. Here we go. Anna?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Rick? You're muted, I guess. Yeah, okay, Rick. I see, for the record, he's raised a thumb. Rob, who's muted.
Aye.
Yeah, aye. Jay?
I'll say aye, but I'll add that my mother would have said that an exhibit like that is for the birds.
Well, I'm glad she had a sense of humor. So, and my vote is in favor. So unanimously in favor, you can go right ahead. Is there anything else, Kate?
I didn't vote yet.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, Tom. Where did I leave you out?
Aye.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry about that. So it is now unanimous. Is there anything else that needs approval that is now planned that you think?
No, I believe that the Needham Art Association for December, November and December were approved.
Approved, yes.
January is open, correct?
It is somewhat open. I expect Nan Daly, who was proposed to go for October, may still be interested if she's got the photos. But I will have to, she was not, but I have her application in, so she just needs to come before the board for approval. It's just a case of I need to contact her and find out if she is able to do an exhibit the way we're currently having to do it. I have no guarantee we're going to be hanging stuff in January.
Yeah, and you know, this whole thing of not having just the virtual website, I don't know how easy it's going to be to attract interested people, artists of color, and so I'm a little
tough.
Kay, I'm curious. I remember I had seen that article, and I sent you that link about that front step, that front steps project. There was a front-page article in the Needham Times about, you know, the photos of people on the front steps during COVID, you know, and I thought that might be a possible display of some sort of library. I'm not sure if you ever followed up on that.
I did. I looked at it. I have not done anything further.
Okay.
No, we've not had a chance to follow up on it. It would be good, but quite frankly, whatever they do, they're going to have to give us something that's at least matted. and it's 16 by 20. I can deal with something matted. It does not have to be fully framed.
Are you talking about a virtual exhibit, Kaylin?
It could be a virtual if that's what it ends up being, but if they want something to actually hang on our walls, it's got to be matted. It's got to be 16 by 20 at least.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. I can forward to you the links that I had shared with Kay at one point, but it seemed interesting.
Yeah, and I think it would be of community interest.
Yeah.
They're actually planning on doing a Needham's only book. They have a national book that, because the project spread nationwide actually, and so they're having that book. They had a book deal for that, and that's becoming like a coffee book of sorts. But they've actually selected some of the Needham families who are asking us to opt in. And they're creating a book with Needham families only, which they're planning to donate some copies to the library. So that's coming.
It's interesting. I'll forward to everybody the links in case you're not familiar with it. But
yeah, I guess we've just seen them in the local paper, these shots. Yeah, I think it's a neat idea, actually. And it's the book. I think that's a wonderful idea. But I think, just people of casual interest would enjoy seeing it as a virtual exhibit.
I think that's a great idea. I think, if you want to pursue that, let me know. I can try. I can talk to the people.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry it's getting late. It was a really important conversation about the website. I think that some things did get clarified, so it was probably worth the time, but it's getting late. Is there anything else, Kay, on your committee, or do we cover?
No, that's all. Thanks.
Okay. McIver.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay, Friends, is there anything, Jay, that you know of?
I know that there's a board meeting scheduled for this month. I actually wish I knew exactly what day it was, but I know that there's one scheduled, and I understand also that on the agenda is this issue about the website. So we'll be raising it, with the whole group and discussing it then. And it may well be that I don't know that we can expect on the same day that they learn about it that they'd be necessarily voting to authorize it. But if we're aiming, for them to get the information they need so that hopefully at their next board meeting in October, they can authorize it, and we could at least measure at this meeting whether it's reasonable to expect a positive response, which is what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Jay, have you heard anything from the program committee part on whether or not they intend to go virtual this fall or put off their programs?
I think they're open-minded about doing virtual presentations. There were a couple of presentations that were scheduled for the fall. One that I know, and the preference from the speaker was not to do it virtual, but to wait until she can do it in person. I think a couple of them were like that, and so there are a few ideas that I've been communicating with Margaret and some of the others about, and so I don't think there's any reason why they shouldn't be able at some point to plan some virtual events. It seems honestly that now more than ever, authors are almost begging for an opportunity to present themselves to the public because they can't go on book tours and do all the other things. And so it may be easier than ever to get national authors to participate. So I think I haven't talked to her recently, but I think the plan is to figure out, how we can offer some events along those lines.
Okay, please have her get in contact with me as soon as she knows, because I need to get those set up.
Sure.
Make sure that we have the proper room available for your use.
Okay.
Right. Anne, did you have something?
Yes, just to add that the Friends Board meeting will probably be the 21st or the 28th. Those are Monday evenings. I have emailed Bruce, but not heard anything back from him. So.
Thank you, Anne.
As soon as I hear, I'll let you know.
Okay. Tom, do you have something on the Friends?
Yes, I do. Since we may be asking Friends for some money, and their biggest fundraiser is the book sales. I was talking to someone today, and they were hoping that sometime that we could try to make an accommodation that they can somehow do their online book sales somehow.
They're working on it now.
You're working on it now? Great, great.
I just had permission to let them in the building a week ago, and so.
Oh, you do? Oh, great, yeah.
Coming into the building via the back door. I let them in and escort them out, and they sign the papers that we all have to sign every day that we're healthy. And
oh, right, yeah, good, good.
They are up here working on cleaning up their room and handling those gifts that people have been putting in the Dropbox, even though they're not supposed to.
And there has been a larger donation, I think.
And, oh, and a large donation from North Hill is up there also.
Okay. All right. Library Foundation. Joan, you're muted.
Foundation is meeting this Thursday, and it will be the first time we really discuss the website. So, and I'll get back to you. We've just been emailing back and forth, but we haven't had the group discussion yet.
Okay, will you display the slides that?
I have already sent the slides to everyone and asked them to look at it.
Wonderful.
And we'll go from there.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much. Trustee comments? Oh, Tom, you have a
I was going to say something about, I like the foundation's article in the paper. It's good to,
yep.
That picture, I was much younger when that picture was taken.
It was the only picture I had, so that's
all right. So trustee comment.
Yeah, Carol.
Yes.
I just want to congratulate the efforts tonight about the website. Rob, Jay, and Kay, thanks for leading this effort. Yeah, we are, I'm just excited to be part of this group that we're trying to push this forward. So just wanted to acknowledge you publicly.
Things never move quite as quickly as you think they need to, and that's certainly been the case with this website issue. But now we feel like, there's, with the work that you three have been doing, it's, there's momentum. We'll see. I think I'm hopeful.
Yeah. The library is becoming the lifeline of the community. It really is. The work you're doing is so important. It's keeping people safe, sane. So we need to have this technology support, the best top of the line. The next year or so, who knows? So this work right now is so crucial. It's so timely. So great work.
And yes, I don't thank you. Go back. My neighbor across the street came over with her 3 little children and said that the library books are a lifeline for her. These are really small kids. She has nothing to do with them, and she's been going to the library for the books. So she thanks you.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Well, may I have a motion to adjourn if there are no other comments?
So moved.
I'll second that motion. Okay.
Okay. All in favor. I'm just going to do voice.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
I see all your
thank you.
Rob's.